Here's a guy who'll jump on me for missing something. The former media mogul, Lord Conrad Black, a genius, great at all things historical, and some of the greatest leaders on both sides of our border. Lord, very good to have you. What do you make of what is going on in Britain right now? It continues a theme of election surprises that have dominated the last year, right? I mean, even Emmanuel Macron in France, and on and on and on. What is going on here?
Well, in fairness, Neil, it's a fiasco for the Prime Minister because she had a majority and went for a bigger majority and lost ground. But she only lost 9 MPs on the latest count in a 650-seat House. And by the way, contrary to the comment you just heard, if they thought they could defeat a Conservative government, I think the Shinners would take the oath of the Queen and vote no confidence, but they won't get the chance.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
But you know, if they're 317, 318, all they need to do is build a few big post offices in Belfast and other Protestant areas of Northern Ireland.
You're right. 7 weeks ago, she was up by 20 points. Life was dandy. She was on her way to being the next Maggie Thatcher.
She didn't run the campaign well, but the manifesto, as they call it, they issued the program just as the election is called, and they made a number of categories of taxpayers and social benefit recipients uneasy. And then she was vulnerable to the charge of just rank opportunism. She said she wanted a strong endorsement to negotiate with Europe, but that was rubbish. She had a majority already that she'd inherited from David Cameron, albeit he had run as party leader on a vote to remain. That he was the Remain leader. But you know, she thought it would work because Corbyn had been rejected by his own parliamentary party. All his shadow cabinet had resigned, and the MPs had voted against him, but the party and the country, as they say in British, the paid-up members of the party, supported him. And rather like the Democrats, only much more profoundly, I mean, the U.S. Democrats, the base had moved to the left. I mean, he's kind of a Sanders-like figure, except he's farther left. I mean, he makes Bernie Sanders look like Grover Cleveland. He's so far left. But, you know, Britain is to the left of the U.S. And so it all got away from them. But with that said, I think the Prime Minister is finished. The last... But just as party leader, the Conservatives can govern all right, and they can govern for 4 years using the Democratic Ulster Party to support them. But I think Boris Johnson's time is coming. But just remember this.
By the way, I don't mean to jump on you, but Conrad, Theresa May has arrived back in London. Her hopes, for now at least, not looking good of getting a majority, you know, in the House of Commons. But was she just a bad campaigner?
Well, yeah, look, I think she's a very presentable person, but she wasn't a strong party leader. And I mean, she didn't, you know, she was a competent Home Secretary, which is one of the great offices in that country, and she's fine. I'm not disparaging her as a person, but, you know, politics is a rough game. And when you dissolve Parliament 3 years prematurely to get a majority and come back with a minority, it doesn't work. And in the British Conservative Party, the last leader in that party to leave in good physical health and good standing with the voters was Stanley Baldwin in 1937. It's a ruthless party. They even shoved out Mr. Churchill. He was 80 years old and he'd had a minor stroke, but he was Mr. Churchill. They shoved out Mrs. Thatcher, who was a great leader. They're a completely ruthless party. If they change leaders now, which I believe they will do, it'll be the 7th leader of that party in 20 years. And the British Conservatives will throw out the leader. It's up to the MPs. It's not like the United States, where if you've got a president, you've got to convict him of crimes to get rid of him.
Neil, can I just add something here?
Sure.
And I'm curious what Lord Conrad Black has to say in this regard, because we've talked about the economy. That certainly hasn't helped her. We've talked about the 2 terror attacks in Manchester and London, but what we haven't talked about is her Twitter feud with the president, because she has tried to be tough and forceful, and it seems as though any time a political opponent does that with President Trump, they fall by the wayside, at least in this country. We saw it with Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, and Chris Christie.
What was she doing going on Twitter?
Well, first she was talking tough about the whole intel flap when the president supposedly revealed a secret that they had learned from British intelligence about an Israeli agent embedded with ISIS. And also some of the intel being shared over the Manchester bombing and how that information got to the cover of the New York Times. And then, you know, the president, I think, definitely responded to that, saying, yeah, we have so many leaks in the media. New York Times should have been more responsible. I'm with you, Theresa.
But she even slapped him down, that is Donald Trump down, when he criticized the London mayor, right? And she's all right, that's a little far.
And maybe that was it. Maybe that was the final straw.
But just imagine if it's Jeremy Corbyn. Just imagine the relationship between these two leaders.
He's trailing. Corbyn can't be the prime minister. He's trailing the Conservatives by 50 MPs. He had a good election, and he picked up 20 MPs. But Corbyn as prime minister is a nightmare we don't have to live with.
All right, so what do you envision then, Conrad? I mean, where do you see the future for him? Because they said he's a no-lose situation tonight. No, he leads his party.
Corbyn's had a good election.
Yeah, where's he going to go?
He became a kind of underdog, and the British especially love an underdog, and so they gave him a bit of a boost. But he won't be an especially effectual opposition leader, and they will get tired of him. But I think if Boris is the Conservative leader, he'll be a much more popular leader.
Boris Johnson. Do you know, by the way, Conrad, we're trying to remember why he passed up the opportunity for that job a year ago after Brexit, and because remember, so many were turning it down or not interested. Or why did he? Do you remember? Because I can't remember.
Well, look, this gets a little complicated. But in Britain, when a party in midterm, single party in government in midterm, the prime minister for any reason retires, he's always replaced, or she, always replaced by either the Home Secretary, the Foreign Secretary, or the Chancellor of the Exchequer. In this case, the Chancellor had to walk the plank with the Prime Minister over Brexit, George Osborne. He bet the ranch on it, too.
Right.
And the Foreign Secretary was a brand new person, Hammond, that they didn't know. Theresa May had been there for 6 years as Home Secretary. She was technically a Remainer, but had only given one speech and was thought not really to be a Remainer, so she was a good compromise candidate. And Boris made his deal with her. Instead of taking her to the mat on an election within the party, he basically said, I'll take Foreign Secretary and you'll be virtually acclaimed, and that's what happened.
Interesting.
But now he's standing right beside her, and she does not have the confidence of that party after squandering a majority.
And he does have that hair. All right, Lord Conrad, always good seeing you, my friend. Thank you very much.
He was my editor at The Spectator. On one bounce, he went to Mayor of London. On another bounce, he was Foreign Secretary.
That's right.
He could be in 10 Downing Street next week.
Say that. Anyone who knows
All my employees do well,
knows you, look what happens.